Peace and blessings, everybody. Chrysalis Sun here. So this video is different. I kind of wanted to sit down with you very informally with my cup of tea. So I'm having tea with you guys this evening, and I kind of want to have a very just open, organic, um, transparent conversation, honest conversation about sisterhood. Okay, so this is something that I've been sitting on for quite a bit of time. I've been meditating, observing for several months now about sisterhood. And to be honest with you, it's a topic that I'm a little awkward about even introducing because I'm definitely not anybody's poster child when it comes to talking about sisterhood. Um, my experiences with sisterhood have been very human, very human, very, uh, uh, you know, uh, just everywhere. I've had some beautiful, wonderful, fulfilling relationships with sisters, and I've had some very heartbreaking, traumatic, toxic, unhealthy relationship with sisters. So my experiences have gone both ways, um, and so it's just something that I'm navigating myself. However, on a spiritual level, it's definitely something that needs to be talked about. It needs to be talked about because right now, it's obvious that we are in this shift. This collective consciousness is on this shift to heal. Heal just on a soul level, on a physical level, on a cosmic level, and the big part of that healing is requiring the energy and the nurturing of the divine feminine. And, in this video, I'm not going to get into the specifics about what the role of the divine feminine is. I am going to discuss that at some point. I won't go into detail now. However, what I will say is that the divine feminine, our main role is to heal. We are the healers. We are the healers of ourselves. We are the healers of our families. We are the healers of our community. The other role that the divine feminine has is we establish culture. Any great dynasty or civilization, the culture of that civilization, if you look historically, and I'll probably do a video about that as well, pull out historical references, but the culture was established by the mothers, the queens, the women in power. So when you think about on a spiritual level and on a social level, the divine feminine, we are the ones rocking the cradle of this movement for the collective healing. However, our hands are tainted because we have a lot of wounds ourselves within our own connection to our fellow sisters. So, the reason why this is important to discuss is because, one, honestly, I'm tired. I'm tired of it, just to see like this toxic sisterhood. And it's something that needs to be addressed because as women, we're communal. We're very communal. Yes, we can do things on our own. Yes, we can do things individually. Anybody can, if we put ourselves to it. But on a deeper level, women, we are communal in nature. Hence is the reason why we establish culture. Culture is communal. So healing is communal as well. So our natural instinct is to have our community and be amongst our community, and it's very difficult to do that when there's so much trauma and toxicity within our communities and within our sisterhood. Because at the end of the day, we're establishing culture, and the culture of sisterhood is toxic, and that means our culture is toxic, and a lot of women get upset with me for saying that, because the idea, usually the pushback is, well, why does it have to be on women? And, we're not, it's not our fault. Everything shouldn't be on us. But, the reality is that, because we have power, that's the responsibility that comes with our power, and we got to be real about that. So, when I talk about my own experience with sisterhood, and I'll probably share my personal story, but I didn't grow up knowing about sisterhood. I didn't grow up with my sisters, and the one sibling I have is a brother, and I'm very close to my brother. And as as in my nature, I lean more towards the masculine. So, and I know I say this because a lot of women, feel or have felt the way I used to feel, which is it's easier to be around men. Oh, I don't deal with women. Women is too much drama, too messy, too, this and that. It's easier to be with men, and hang out with men and have male friends. And I used to be that way, I used to feel that way. However, there comes to a certain point where, you do want to cultivate relationships with your sisters. So, when I started to get to that point, and feeling that way, I joined a sorority, and I talk about that. I wrote an article about sisterhood, and I do talk about that in my article. I started making an effort to cultivate more friendships with women. And, like I said earlier, some of those relationships are great, some of them weren't. But what it really revealed to me was, one, where I needed to develop, when it comes to how I relate to sisterhood. Because, a lot of the situations that I found myself in that weren't to my benefit with my sisters were situations that I co-created. So there was a certain level of toxic behaviors that I had held within myself that, I was attracting the mirror in my sisters, So, anytime I have a situation where, it doesn't go my way, or, it's unfavorable, or whatever the case may be, I always look to how I co-created it, and because that, one, that keeps me from being a victim. But two, that's what it is in every situation. We co-create everything. Nothing is ever done to us. So what it really boiled down to was I saw all the ways that I was attributing to toxic sisterhood, right? So, as this has gone on, I've developed and I've matured, but I still have situations where, I've been, I've had unfavorable situations with women, hurtful situations with women. And, the question for me, was, well, why does this, if I've developed and I've grown so much, why does this still happen? Why is this still happening? And what came to me, what was very obvious, is that, yes, we have mirrors, we track what we are, but on a deeper level, this is a collective thing. This is a collective wound that's occurring, to the point where no matter how much I master my relationships and how I interact with women, if the sisterhood as a whole, as a collective, has this deep searing wound, it's not gonna, there's only so much I can do, So I realized, like, okay, well, shit, I gotta get on and I gotta talk about this, and I sat on it, avoided it, because it's a lot to unpack. What caused me to sit down and actually record this video this evening was, a sister that reached out to me and expressed that, she's leading, doing a sister circle. And, they were reading my article I wrote about sisterhood. I wrote an article over a year ago. And, they were very emotional around that article. So she basically let me know, like, yo, like, we need to talk about this. There needs to be a dialogue around this. And it needs to be something that's put out there, circulated, So I was like, all right. All right. So I did take notes. So, because I don't want this video to be too long. This is an introductory video. And this is an introductory video on what kills sisterhood. Okay? So, a couple of things that, I want to say as far as why this video is important is that a lot of the things that are wrong with sisterhood are the same things that are wrong within our communities, within our society. So I'm under the strong belief and feeling that once these things are cured and addressed within sisterhood, they'll automatically trickle out into the rest of the consciousness, the collective consciousness, because again, women, we're the healers, and we set the culture. So if we create a culture of healthy sisterhood, then what happens is we create a culture of healthy community, period. The other reason why is because, you know, as the earth is shifting, like the great mothers are demanding this, you know, and I'm going to do a video talking about who and what the great mothers are. But the great mothers are you know, our ancestors. There are, you know, the custodians of earth, you know, Mother Earth. And the great mothers are angry. You know, our great mothers are angry, and there's a rage coming from our great mothers because they want balance restored, you know. And I see it happening, you know. Of course it's happening just with, you know, the goddess movement, right? So now we have the strong divine feminine movement, you know, this goddess movement, where we see so many women reclaiming their place in society, in culture, in spirituality, you know, on all levels. So that's, you know, because that was taken from us, you know. And I won't get into the patriarchy conversation today, but just with organized religion, institutionalized religion, and patriarchy has stripped the divine feminine from from society in the rightful place, you know, in that it deserves. So, you know, with that being said, there's this movement, this goddess movement that's come in, you know, and that's tied to this energy that we're feeling from the great mothers that want us to reclaim what's ours, you know. And part of what's ours is our power, you know. But what it is us needing to understand fully what all of our powers are. And, you know, with power comes responsibility. And on a bigger scale too, you know, we're in the age of Aquarius now. And, you know, the age of Aquarius definitely is about brotherhood, togetherness, community. And so that is the 5D reality that we're in, that we are quickly shifting into. And but in order for us to really embody that fully, we need to heal and be, you know, communal and together for real. You know, and I say for real because what that means is that requires us to really go in and do some deep healing when it comes to ourselves and how we relate to our fellow sisters. And that healing requires us to be real. You know, it's not easy, it's not comfortable, you know what I'm saying? It requires us to be real. You know, and a lot of us are shying away from that, but it's necessary because it's literally a poison that's within our sisterhood and how we relate to each other. So it's so interesting to me because, you know, what I've seen as this goddess movement has been taking momentum is, you know, now I'm seeing like two types of sisterhood, right? And the first one is extremely toxic, you know, extremely toxic and codependent. It's based around like a cult like energy, you know. So typically what it is like one person, and they're this like the leader, they're the center of the circle, you know, because anytime a group of women gather, it's a sacred circle. You know, we call it a sacred circle. And so it's, you know, in the circle, it's a circle. You know what I mean? Like everybody, it's perfectly round, it's perfectly balanced. You know, there's no leader of the circle. You know, everybody comes into the circle bringing their energy and their power and fully embodied. But in this toxic sisterhood situations, you have a cult essentially. So you have the one leader, and, you know, they're over here and, you know, they set the standard, you know, for how everyone should act, what everybody should do. So either everyone's trying to be like this one leader, or, you know, they're trying to reach this standard that what the one person has set. And what ends up happening is that there are sisters within that circle that don't fit the molds, or they're different, or they move differently, or they have their own power, their own energy, and because it doesn't match the culture of the circle, and it doesn't fit with what the leader is dictating, then the leader and the leader's followers, or minions is what I call them, end up excluding those sisters, ostracizing them. And for women, that's, well, for anybody, especially people of color, who we're already communal as it is. I mean, not, women are communal, but people of color are especially communal. Being ostracized, excluded, kicked out, exiled from your community is one of the worst punishments you can receive. So that itself is an extra trauma, because, to be excluded from your sisters, to be exiled from your sisters, that's an additional pain or wound that occurs within those particular sisterhood type dynamics. The second type of sisterhood is marketable. So basically, it's somebody selling you sisterhood. So monthly memberships, paying for retreats, paying for whatever, and in that case, you may have one leader, you may have a group of women, but they're selling you sisterhood. And usually what happens is that as long as you have money, then you have excess, and that's not sisterhood either. That's very toxic, very traumatic, very exploitive. Because with that, in those types of dynamics, that those people or that one person is capitalizing off of the need to be a part, that people that we have to be a part of a community. And a lot of us want to belong so badly that we go for it. We accept it. We go into those types of situations and we pay for sisterhood, but it's not real sisterhood. Had to take a sip. So, when I think about sisterhood, I like to define words, because a lot of times we start off disconnected about topics because we don't even define it the same. So anytime I go into a situation, I'm like, okay, or anytime I want to talk about something, I'm like, what is the definition of this word? Let's define words, right? So I went and looked up what sisterhood means, broke out the Webster's dictionary and looked it up, and there was two definitions that came up. The first definition that came up was a relationship between women. Okay. Now, the important word, the key word in that definition is relationship. And right with that word itself, that let me see why a lot of sisterhood dynamics break down, because there's no relationship. There's no, women come in and they think that, just because we connect, or we got the same interest, or whatever the case may be, we're vibing, that we have a relationship. That's my sister. And it's like, but no, a lot of times we don't know who that person is. We don't know, we don't know, what, how they tick. We're not connected enough to know what they need, what their intentions are, and that's another thing too, is that, in order to build a relationship with someone, you have to connect, and a lot of times women, we don't know how to connect with each other. We're uncomfortable with connecting with each other, and then a lot of times when we do get close, then there's a lot of self-sabotaging or relationship sabotaging, just, all kinds of shit that comes up. And so, that's the first part of cultivating sisterhood, is developing relationships, but then that means we have to learn how to develop relationships with ourselves first, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, the second definition of sisterhood is a community of women linked by a common interest. That's another reason why sisterhood breaks down, because a lot of women get together and they don't have a common interest. They think they do, but it's not talked about, or it's not laid out on the table, or someone may say that they have a shared interest and they have a whole different agenda, or the shared interest in itself is toxic. You know, so a lot of times with these groups or these sisterhood circles is, you know, the shared or the common interest is trauma. So a lot of us are connecting with sisters on the basis of our shared traumas, which I understand the need to do that sometimes in order to heal. You know, like I said, you know, women were communal. So we do need to have that communal, you know, healing to a certain level, because at some point, you know, the purpose of getting together in that way is to transcend those traumas. But what happens when a sister transcends the trauma, but then other sisters aren't? Then now there starts to be a disconnect. Or if you're in a marketable sisterhood, then that market, they're marketing to you, they're getting money off of you based on your trauma. So the whole goal is to keep you in that trauma. You know, and that's something else too. A lot of times in these sisterhood dynamics, we don't allow each other to grow and release, you know, our traumas, because that's the one thing that keeps us connected to each other. So then we're afraid that if that sister grows and she's, you know, moves past those traumas, like, oh shit, I don't have that sister anymore, or who, she thinks she's better than me, you know. So, you know, it's so interesting to see how in those definitions, it's clear why a lot of sisterhood breaks down. So a year ago, I was going through, you know, a situation where I was betrayed by a sister, you know, in a really hurtful way, and I was processing that, and the steps of me processing, I got on Facebook and I asked, you know, what kills sisterhood? And I asked that specifically to women. You know, I didn't want any men to respond, and respectfully, none of the men chimed in as far as giving an answer. But the brothers that did chime in, they chimed in to give support to what the women were expressing. You know, so it was a very beautiful exchange. However, I was not prepared for the amount of responses I got. I think within 24 hours, I had like 150 responses. You know, it was one of my most active Facebook posts. And, you know, it was very eye-opening to see what the responses were, you know, and, you know, all these shared experiences. A lot of women, you know, were saying the same things, you know, so a lot of us had the same shared experiences. So that was eye-opening and sad. You know, it was very sad to read the responses, you know, disheartening is the word I'll use. It was very disheartening to read the responses. Also because, you know, for me personally, a lot of things that were expressed, I've experienced those myself, but also a lot of things that were expressed, I participated in. You know, that's another thing too, for us to really dive into what kills sisterhood, we have to really look at how we ourselves as individuals have contributed to the demise of sisterhood. So when I was reading a lot of those responses, I was like, wow, ooh, like I've done that. Like, oh shit, I've done that too. You know what I'm saying? And so I had to really sit with that, which is another reason why it's taken me so long to even start this series. So as a matter of fact, I'm gonna read the responses. I'm gonna read the list. So this is a list of all the responses I got for what kills sisterhood. Fear, lack mentality, poverty mindset, jealousy, mother wounds issues, slut shaming and rape culture, mistrust, disconnect from Mother Earth, anger, hurt, dishonesty, internalized patriarchy, unhealthy wombs, unhealthy egos, inauthenticity, gossip, judgment, competition, assumptions, lack of self-worth or self-love, mirrors, reflections, betrayal, selfishness, lack of knowledge, impatience, lack of integrity, lack of accountability, lack of appreciation, need for validation, unreliability, rudeness, lack of compassion, inability to communicate, inability to be uncomfortable or triggered, inability to forgive, keeping score and lack of generosity, inability to hold space, unrealized sexuality, exploitation, toxic codependency, controlling behavior, manipulation, internalized racism, expectations, lack of love, lack of respect, lack of boundaries, religious dogma or any dogma, undeveloped spirituality, exclusion, father wounds or issues. It's a pretty long list. Yeah, it's a pretty long list. And when you really look at it, you realize that those are a lot of the same things that kill our communities. You know, it's the reason why we have a lot of turmoil within our communities, right? So I just truly strongly feel that if we were to really, really address healing sisterhood, that we really could transform our communities. So that's what I'm on. So what I decided to do was create a series called the Sisterhood series. And again, like I said, this is the introductory video. And I am going to talk about every single one of these items on the list. So I'm going to first address what kills sisterhood, and then I'm going to address how we can rebirth sisterhood. Because, yeah, we can talk about what the problem is all day, but I like to give solutions to problems, right? We know what the problem is, okay? How do we fix it? That's what I'm about. And, you know, this is as much of a journey for me as it is for anybody who'll be watching these videos, because I'm holding myself to task as well, right? So this is the introduction. This is the first video for the Sisterhood series. It's something that I find to be very necessary, and I'm pretty sure that it'll probably take me about a year, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years to really fully do the series. So I'm dedicating myself to it because it's something that really needs to be addressed. And I feel like once we get this together and we heal this, then, you know, we'll set the culture for everyone else, and then everybody else will follow suit. Because what I've come to realize is that nothing happens without the permission of the woman. Nothing exists without the permission of the divine feminine. You know, and a lot of people don't like that idea, but it's true. Nothing happens without our permission. So the reason why we have so many issues is because we're permitting it. You know, the issues that we have in our society, you know, in our world, our politics, our families, our communities, is because we have given it permission. So this is me formally revoking my permission for the toxic energy and the toxic, you know, behaviors within sisterhood. And, you know, I'm revoking that, because me revoking it there means I'm revoking it everywhere else. So this is me taking away my permission. And I'm hoping that, you know, with these videos, there'll be a movement. You know, more of us will get on the same page, and we'll revoke our permission for, you know, the chaos that is occurring right now. You know, that way we can move towards a more balanced, a more embodied way of being within our communities and within our societies. And with that being said, you know, it gives us the space to fully claim like our power and our place, you know, within that society, within that community. So that's all I'm gonna say. You know, the video was a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but that's what happens when I just get down and I just start talking, even though I had notes, making sure I wanted to address a couple things, but, you know, I just kind of wanted to have this dialogue. So this is the first of the Sisterhood series, you know, and, you know, the next video will be the first thing on the list, which is fear. So the next video, I'll be talking about how fear kills sisterhood. So stay tuned. Peace and blessings.